It's great to see all of you guys. I know right now people are in the midst of what I believe it's called Satan's attacks, right? Or AKA finals, right? And so what's hilarious is every single year when I do the attendance track, around this time, that's when people are like, oh, I don't know if I can go tonight, right? And so I actually heard that someone has an exam tomorrow morning. And I believe her professor's name was Lucifer. Because if you get assigned an exam on Saturday, that is wrong, morally, on multiple accounts. But it's great to see you guys. If anyone is new, this is our college group. We really want to welcome you. We're the college group here at Living Hope. We exist. We're a single-issue ministry. We're all about making disciples of the college generation. That's simply what we exist for. There's a lot of things that college ministries can do. We can have big events. We can have fun activities. And though we do those things sometimes, our primary crux issue is we make disciples. We don't do it perfectly, but by the grace of God, because we believe that God sent His Son, Jesus, to live the life that you and I could never ever live. He died the death that you and I should have died because of our sins, and He rose again, validating that His work on the cross was efficacious or successful, bringing us to right relationship with God. And so therefore, we can become like Him every day until He carries us into eternity, and so that's what we exist for, okay? Oh, by the way, if anyone does not know, my name is Bane. I'm on staff here. I'm one of the college staffers and also the college pastor. But let's move into this, okay? So if you look up on the screen, I admit that I cheated. I tried to use like a fancy title, right? The secret to thriving spiritually. And like every pastor that does this, you know what the answer is, right? You know what he says, right? What does he say? There is no secret. Right? Everyone's like, yeah, we knew that, idiot, right? And so here's kind of why I wanted to kind of bring this up, okay? Because right now we're in this place where there's kind of two types of people in this room right off the bat. On the one hand, some of us. You are kind of in this place where like, yeah, this whole Christian thing, like I want to get to know it more, and I want to know if am I a Christian, or what does it mean to be a Christian? You want to discover more. On the other hand, most of us, I would argue the majority of us, you actually identify yourself as a Christian. And if that's you, you've probably heard this phrase, something like a thriving Christian life. Something like that, like, a growing Christian life. So you can kind of put your own word around that, but in your mind, you've kind of heard, if you've been around the church scene, even for like longer than, I don't know, like 5 minutes, you know that people are striving for this kind of thriving, exploding, exciting, growing spiritual life with Jesus. And that's fine. The problem is it hasn't really been defined, right, in terms of what exactly that means or looks like. And so instead, what we kind of have are these kind of, murky ideas and pictures and visuals and examples and figures, and that's kind of what we have. So for example, if you look up on the screen, some of us, when we think about a thriving spiritual life, this is kind of, you think about this, right? You kind of think about some person who knows their Bible inside out. Their minds are filled with so much information, and my goodness, this side of the room is like packed. I don't know what's going on here. This is amazing, but right, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But right, some of us in our minds, our view of someone who is thriving spiritually is someone who knows all this quote unquote theology or these truths about God, and they know all this Bible, and they're reading their Bible every day. And so, for someone here, you actually kind of identify yourself with this person. They're like, that's me. I've been reading my Bible every day in the midst of finals. That's why I got a 0. Okay, right, whatever excuses we're making. So that's how some of us identify spiritual thriving or growing. Others of us, we kind of have this picture, right? This person that's on fire emotionally for Jesus. Right? So some of us were like, man, as long as someone just like feels it, like that person's on fire, right? So for all we know, some guy could be sleeping with his girlfriend, but if he shows up on Sunday, he's like, Jesus! We're like, dude, that guy's on fire. That guy has a thriving spiritual life. That's what we think. Others of us, we do not have this view of like someone who's emotionally bursting forth in love with Jesus. Some of us, we actually think, no, it's the people who are like, it's community. Right? This person's always, they're at every single church function. Right? In fact, they live at church. Okay, it's dumb. Right? But I mean, they're cell group, they're buddies with every single person in their small group or cell group, and they know everyone, and like the prayer requests, they know everything. And so we think if someone is just plugged into a lot of community, they must be thriving spiritually. Others of us, we actually have this view, it's someone who just serves a lot. Right? Every Sunday they're serving in their parachurch ministry, they're thinking about going overseas, right? Whatever they're doing, they're trying to serve. They're making their lives usable for Jesus. And so their lives are just filled with activity. And so any life that's filled with activity, we think, okay, that must be what it means to, have a thriving spiritual life. And others of us, we're like, I don't know, it's just this guy. Right? Just John Piper guy. Everyone quotes John Piper all the time. This is what spiritual thriving is. Right? You have gray hair and you turn old and you're wise and you write 1 million books, right? Okay, and so this has kind of become what I call the scoreboard of Christian thriving. That when we think about how we should kind of score our own spiritual lives, we think it's the summation of certain things like that. So it's something like you have to know the right stuff. Or you have to just really feel the right stuff. Or you just have to kind of do the right things. And so many of us right now, even though you talk about God's grace and all that stuff, when you think about the Christian life, and when you think about what it means to have a thriving Christian life, this is actually your viewpoint. This is your scoreboard. And so for some of us tonight, actually, if before you even walked into this room, if I was kind of like, hey, how are you doing spiritually? Right? Some of us would say I haven't read my Bible in 30 years, and okay, I don't know why you would say that, because you haven't been alive 30 years. I have. I shouldn't have given up my age, but we're going to digress back to the sermon now because I've gone tangent again. But right, I haven't done this. Or some of us, you know what you're going to say? You're going to say, I'm just not feeling it these days. I don't know if it's because, I've been sleeping at 4 a.m. every day because of finals. You're not bitter. But, right? And so I just don't feel it. Others of us, your minds are not filled with Jesus. It's filled with this boy. Or this girl. Or this idea. Someone here was like, yeah. And so here's what we often do, is that when we think about what it means to have a successful Christian spiritual life, our viewpoint and our worldview of the Christian life becomes reduced to kind of these things that people think and feel and do, and that's kind of all it's become. And so when you view the pursuit of Jesus, you've kind of reduced everything down to this is the scoreboard. And your goal, your action, your desire, your motivation, what you're really going after is just to kind of fill this okay in your life somewhere, where you can just check off the list and you're like, I'm okay. And so my question is this okay? Is this really how we're supposed to be the Christian life? And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a quick time of assessment. All right? We're going to assess, is this scoreboard accurate? Well, here we go. On the one hand, we're going to see what's helpful, how that scoreboard of knowing the right things, feeling the right things, and doing the right things, how it's helpful, but on the other hand, how it's harmful, okay? So, and by the way, we agree, most of us, we do kind of, that is kind of our scorekeeping. We agree, right? Okay, all right. Everyone nodded. Okay, like 3 people did, but I just felt insecure, so I just said everyone did. But I know you guys deep down inside your hearts agree. Okay, so here's kind of where that scoreboard is really, really helpful. Where it's helpful is that the scoreboard can give us a completely true reflection about ourselves. What I mean by that is that if you are someone where your scoreboard of how you view how someone thrives spiritually is that they're just emotionally feeling stuff all the time, that's an accurate reflection, first of all, what you actually think about the Christian life, and then secondly, it does reflect what's actually going on inside your heart. So if you don't feel something, then that accurately reveals that you don't feel anything at that moment, right? If your view of the Christian life is that someone has to know a bunch of information, well then that accurately, truly reflects what you think about the Christian life, and therefore, depending on us finding out how much you really know or not, we can find out if your value is really true or not. So on the one hand, that scoreboard can give an accurate reflection of what's really going on inside our hearts and in our minds. However, here's where it's really harmful. Okay, now this is where some of us, if you're lost, this is where you're going to really get lost. Just hang tight. Okay, here we go. So where it's harmful is the scoreboard is not truly complete in what we should reflect as Christians. So I'm just scanning the room because I see a bunch of question marks. What I mean is, though the scoreboard of, you're thriving spiritually if you just think the right things, and if you just feel the right way, and if you just kind of do the right stuff, though it's accurate in terms of reflecting you in one sense, it does not necessarily complete the entire picture of maybe what the true scoreboard of what it means to thrive spiritually really is. Maybe there's more to the picture. You see, I'm not knocking us reading the Bible and knowing the right stuff and feeling the right things and doing the right, I'm not knocking that at all. It's important. But I'm just saying when we go back to the scriptures and see what Jesus really has to say about what it means to follow him, I think there's more to the picture. So let's get right to it. How do we know someone is thriving spiritually? And here's the answer. We're going to unpack it for the rest of the talk. Ready? Here we go. We know that someone is thriving when they're dying. We know someone is thriving spiritually because they're dying to selfishness. So yeah, them knowing the right things, that is important. Them feeling the right things, feeling affection, fighting for joy and affection for Jesus, that's absolutely important. Someone living the right way, fighting sin, it's all important. But I'm just saying, if we're going to complete the scoreboard of what it means for someone to truly thrive spiritually, the complete scoreboard, according to maybe not just the Bible, but Jesus, is that we know someone is thriving when they're dying. We know someone is thriving spiritually when they're dying to selfishness, to a way of life where it's really about you being in control, you getting your way all the time, and you almost bending God's ways to fit your own way. Where it's not about you being at the center of it all, but you really say every day, that I want God and his ways to be central, and that we will revolve around the planet, the sun. That is, the sun. Okay, that worked very well, thank you. Sometimes I should have inner dialogue just in my mind alone and stop doing the solar system orbiting thing. Let's move on. So where do I get this from? I get it from this amazing, it's kind of all over the New Testament, but for our purposes, I think we get this from the ancient call of Jesus for discipleship. See, there's this amazing passage we're going to go through. Just real quickly, this passage, I actually cover this in church membership. If the Gospels, there's 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke. I'm not talking about Gospels in terms of the saving message of Jesus, but I'm talking about the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's 4 accounts or lives of portraits of Jesus. And there is a core conversation that is had that shifts Jesus' entire direction of life. So while the majority of time he's revealing he performs like a ministry of miracles, he has this conversation, and after this conversation, he now goes to the miracle of the ministry of the cross. So whatever this conversation is, it's a really big deal because it's a turning point, okay? If you've ever had a conversation that's kind of a turning point to your life, that's a really big deal. So here's the big deal conversation, okay? Now, when Jesus came to the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? He's saying, who do people say that I am? And they said, well, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. And Jesus said to them, yeah, but who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter replied, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. So he's saying, you're this Old Testament promised figure who's going to deliver God's people from their trials and deliver them from their issues. And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah." And this must have been a big moment for Peter, because if you know anything about Peter, he doesn't get a whole lot of stuff right. So I bet Peter was almost like, really? I am? You know what I mean? Okay, and so blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven, and I will tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one he was the Christ. Now, we don't have time to unpack everything that he follows up with. But here's what's kind of the gist of what's happening. Peter is praised for identifying Jesus accurately. He said, hey, who do people say that I am? They say you're all these prophets. Who do you say? Well, we say that you're, this promised figure. And he's like, you got it. So Peter is praised for identifying Jesus accurately. Now, I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments where you do something right, and then literally moments later you do something wrong, and you're like, dang it, I should just left after, I should just stop talking after that. You ever have those moments? Okay, so this is, Peter. He gets it, okay? Here's what happens next. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. So he's saying, look, good job, guys. You guys identified me rightly. And by the way, I'm going to go die. I have to die. Verse 22, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke Jesus, saying, far be it from you, Lord. This shall never happen to you. And by the way, why? Because for Peter, he's like, you're the Messiah. You're supposed to save us. Politically, socially, economically, everything else except spiritually. Okay, so he didn't fully grasp it, right? So he's like, no. And verse 23, but Jesus turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You're a hindrance to me, for you're not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of men. If you are ever called by Satan or by Jesus as Satan, that is a day to repent. What's going on here? Here's what's going on here, is that Peter is rebuked for imposing his agendas on Jesus. You see, literally one moment, Peter is praised for identifying Jesus accurately. But then moments later, Peter is rebuked. Even though he identified Jesus accurately, sort of kind of, he imposes upon Jesus his own self-absorbed, self-full, self-filled version of what he thinks life should be for Jesus and for him. See, the problem wasn't that he didn't want Jesus to die. That wasn't the issue. Oh no, I'm going to be so sad. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that Peter had a personal agenda. He was thinking about himself. He was thinking about self-gain. And he was trying to use and force and control Jesus to fit that picture. This is why, right after this, Jesus gives this ultimate call of every disciple. Here's what he says. Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? See, it's so poetic that Jesus says, hey, if you're going to follow me, you got to die. Your own personal, selfishness, in terms of you wanting to live the way that you want to live apart from me and my ways, that's got to go. That's why he uses the cross imagery, right? I mean, for us, I know we're really, really far removed from this, but this is not, no one wakes up let's take up our crosses. That wasn't popular. It was a form of, it was master torture. That's what it was. Torture mastered to the nth degree. But here's the imagery that Jesus is trying to use. When someone is crucified on a cross, that's not the moment where someone's like, hey, Does anyone want to do something for lunch today? Like that would be ridiculous. If someone is hanging on a cross, like you don't have a call. You don't have a say, right? You're just kind of like, all right, I'm here. And I don't think anyone talked like that on the cross, right? I think everyone was screaming and nagging, but everyone's like, yeah, all right? No one who's hanging on a cross is like, hey guys, like, Jesus, do you want to follow me? I was thinking maybe I could build my life this way, and I was just wondering if you could help me. I can pray and tithe a little bit. No. When you're hanging on a cross, you're done. Like, there is nothing that you can impose on anybody. You have come to the end of yourself. And so what he's saying is he's inviting every disciple, hey, you got to come to the end of yourself. Now, don't get me wrong here. Self-denial is not the same thing as the loss of self. It doesn't mean like you lose your unique personality, right? Like I remember for me growing up, whenever I saw like a loud person, like a big personality, I'd be like, I wish they would deny themselves a little bit more, right? So it doesn't mean that someone who's loud has to be like, oh my gosh, I can make this hilarious joke in the name of Jesus, but I'm going to deny myself. That's not what it means. If there's someone really artistic in here, it doesn't mean that you have to, suppress your creative juices and become left brain. That's horrible. But here's what it does mean. What it does mean is that your unique personality finds its way in, with, for Jesus. It means that your personality does not exist on its own anymore. So that actually means that your loud personality, at times, must require restraint. But this also means someone with a quiet personality, when following Christ and denying themselves, must step up and go center stage. This means the artistic person sometimes must, yes, at times, relinquish their right-brainness for you guys here. So no, it's not a loss of self. It's not that you can't be yourself. It's not even that you can't be your best version of yourself. It's that you be the Christ crucified version of yourself. This is what Paul talks about, right? In Galatians 2:20, for I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ in me. It's that, they're living, but it's just not their own life anymore, independently from God. They don't call the shots anymore. They don't impose on God. They don't try to control God to fit their life. And so they're saying, God, you can control my life. On a given moment, on a given day, I let go. I have a certain personality, I have desires, I have passions, and I want to pursue them, but I want to follow you to the best of my ability. So can you help me? And if you tell me to go this way, I'll go this way. And if you tell me to stop, I'll stop. And if you tell me to run as fast as I can, I'll run. But it's no longer I who live, but Christ in me. You know what's fascinating, though, is many of us, our view of spiritually thriving, it's a lot like Peter's. Because we'll identify Jesus correctly, but then we'll turn around and we'll just be totally self-absorbed, right? Jesus is like, who do you see that I am? And we're like, oh, you totally satisfy. You really satisfy my soul. And then we turn around and we're like, where is he? How come, I'm still not in a relationship? And, it's been oh my gosh, it's been 3 days since I made that prayer, and I'm bitter and I'm upset. And, where is he? Who do you see that I am? You're in control of the future. You hold everything in your hands, Time is in your hands, Chris Tomlin said. Beginning and the end, beginning and the end, right? And we turn around and we're like, dude, I'm so worried, I'm so anxious, I don't get it, right? He's like, who do you see that I am? And we're like, you're the forgiver, you're the forgiver, you're the forgiver. And we turn around and we're like, you know what that person did to me 5 years ago? I do not like that person at all, and I'm gonna gossip, right? Just say, hey, who do you see that I am? And we're like, oh, you're the ultimate servant. You're the ultimate servant, and so we should be like you. And we turn around and we're like, yeah, I'll be a servant, but just not until someone treats me like it. And if someone treats us like a servant, we're like, how dare that person treat me like a servant? Even though that's what I'm saying I want to be, right? And so for us, a lot of us, we think that maybe I'm thriving spiritually because, I've identified it correctly. I know all the right things, but maybe even in so doing, we're actually filled with self. There's immense self-absorption. But thriving is not you. It's death. And I realize this is a very not sexy Friday night message on the week of finals. But I want to give you a couple of examples of how this can materialize and look like. And I apologize for the first imagery. I think it would be a lot more spiritual than that. This is example one of someone who is dying to self. Can they do something wrong? Right? And even when they do something wrong, everyone loves them for that. Right? You know people like that? Extremely popular, but you know how they die to self? How they die to selfishness? Here's how. You will never see them just pursuing popularity as an end in and of itself. In fact, you will never see them kind of leverage popularity in ways to kind of ostracize somebody. In fact, they'll kind of, if anything, they might use their popularity to kind of serve someone else and to lift and elevate somebody else. So yeah, this person's popular. But it's a situation, a circumstance that they are not using for in self-absorption. Instead, it's not them that they're trying to live out, but it's Christ. Here's example two. This guy, you might relate with him, but he's man, just everything. You know how they say when it rains, it pours? It is pouring in this guy's life. Everything is going well. Right, he just got a 0 on his final. Okay, he didn't. He got like a 65. He's not doing well. He's experiencing a ton of drama. Someone is talking crap about him, and he just has a lot. He's dealing with a lot of insecurities right now. There's a ton of struggle. He feels empty and lonely. So some of us, we actually kind of relate with this guy. But here's the issue: rather than him being bitter at God, saying, "How dare you? I served. I serve in my parachurch ministry. I volunteer for VBS, and this is what you're going to give me? Nothing? Instead of imposing his will and agenda, what he says is, God, I have no idea what's happening, but I know you're good. I know you're good, and what I want to ask you is, what are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to show me? And I'm trying to follow you and trust you. So he doesn't have all the answers. He doesn't feel good, but he's dying to his selfishness. And so he's thriving spiritually. Here's example 3 of someone who's thriving spiritually. This person, you might relate with her. To be honest, she does not know all the right theology. All the biblical passages, if you kind of ask her hey, she's kind of asking her, wait, the Trinity is so we worship 3 gods, right? Oops, I didn't mean to commit heresy, right? She's one of those, right? So she doesn't have it all together up here. There's a lot of question marks. But here's how I know she's thriving spiritually. She's thriving spiritually because with what she knows, she truly believes. And she truly tries to live out. You see, thriving spiritually it's not just some sort of external form, guys. It's a decision every day and moment where we say, God, I'm trying. Help me not to be self-absorbed and to impose myself on you. Rather, God, you, by your Spirit, you have control over my life. I want to surrender to you. This is the more accurate and complete Christian scoreboard. We know someone is thriving spiritually because they're dying to selfishness. Now, the other stuff still matters. We should, strive to know the right stuff. We should, passionately, yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it is not just someone simply feeling good about their spiritual life. Some of us, you're in this place where you're actually really discouraged with your Christian life. And in fact, some of us, your circumstance, it's really bad. It's not set up well for you to succeed and for you to flourish in some way. But may we never deceive ourselves and trick ourselves to think that thriving spiritually is just fantastic circumstance. It's not true. Here's two quick implications for us. You know, the Christian life is difficult. It is difficult. You know, the call of Jesus, it's not easy. When he called his disciples, he didn't say, hey, like, come to this Friday night thing, and, you know, you can become a member, and, like, it's awesome, and you're just... No, it's true. That's life in the local church, but the call to Christ is, hey, you're going to die every day for the rest of your life. It's difficult. But get this. The Christian's difficulties, there are opportunities. In fact, some of the crappy situations that we go through, it's actually God's mechanism to awaken us for how much we actually love control and selfishness, self-absorption. You know, I'm a very self-absorbed person. You know how I know this? Because I'm talking about myself right now. No, right now I am. On a given day when I wake up, the first person that I think about is myself. You know the last person I think about when I go to bed? Me. My children, they're already self-absorbed. They're looking in the mirror like, right? Why do you love yourself so much? There's a video of my son making out with himself in a mirror. And he's like, no. I'm like, what are you doing? No, seriously, you know how we know this? We get offended. We're worried. We are. But have you ever considered that those pricks and pokes of life, it is God inviting you? You're not in control. You're not. Stop imposing your control on God. Surrender. Let go. So, where do we go from here? Where do we go? How do we strive to die to our selfishness? You know, on the one, it's kind of, there's a positive and there's a negative, right? There's something to pursue and there's something to not pursue. You know, can I just suggest this? When finals are done, when you go on winter break, it might be a really great opportunity, a time for you to actually lead in some Jesus time in your life. So this is where, like, doing the right stuff, it does matter. Like, you know, your spiritual disciplines, you're reading the Bible. But, you know, can I add this in here? Like, you know, our church, we offer things like Grow 201, Grow 301, stuff like that. And so there are resources available for you guys, but that's for you guys to take season and to own. You have to do it. Okay? And so on the one hand, I want to invite you to take advantage of your winter break. Here's some suggestions. One is, someone in your suburb, or a buddy, or two, have dates, like at least once a week, where you can go to a coffee shop, a cafe, have the youngest person pay. So someone just smiled like, I'm not the youngest. And say, hey, we're going to read for the first hour, or 45 minutes, or 30 minutes, or 15 for those of you who are, scared. And afterwards, be like, hey, let's share, and then let's go to the movies. Go for it. How about this one? How about you buy one book, and during your winter break, you read that one book, and you let that book shape and form your heart. If you need recommendations, you can shoot me a message, and I'd be more than happy. If there's a certain topic that you want to pursue, you let me know, and I'll send it my way. You can go to my office, just take a book. You don't have to ask me, but I've lost a lot of books. Some books, I'm like, hey, where's that book? Oh, I think that one student has it. It's all good. But seriously, go up, just take it. Just take everything. Take everything. Okay? But will you seek him? Will you seek him? See, you know how love of self is lessened? You just have to see something more beautiful. And the more we see him, the more beauty we will find in Jesus. But here's the second. The second thing is there are things that we actually have to turn away from. Now, this is where the conversation gets really kind of testy because there's this popular language today called legalism. And I think legalism is real. Legalism is where we try to do things to like earn our way with God, right? Earn love from God. But what we've actually done today is whatever we don't like, ideas, we just put legalism on that as a means of not doing it, right? So it's like, hey, read your Bible. What? Legalism, right? Like, hey, you should go to church. Legalism, right? Just like, how about you just obey, right? How about you just love Jesus? Well, legalism. What if I don't feel it? It's like, we need to settle down. Because for me, like, if my wife was like, hey, hey, what do you think? How about, like, you never, like, talk to a girl on the phone, like at midnight. I'm not going to be like, oh, legalism. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, if I'm like, hey, like, I'm really busy today, but, like, when I go home at night, the first thing I'm going to do is ask her, like 20 questions. I'm asking her, 21 questions. Why 21? Because it's one more than 20, baby. Right? Like, that's not legalism. I'm just setting up my life. I'm just setting it up so that I can love her more, right? And so this is where like I'm big on, I love shows. There are websites that I love, like reading articles. Like I'm a content, right? Consumer, and that's why I love to produce content. But could it be that for some of us, actually your heart is being drained a lot more than you actually know? Like some of the stuff that we kind of consume, it is actually affecting you. Now, some of us, not as much. Others of us, a lot. I've shared this before. So, there's a show that it's cool if you watch this, okay? But this is just an example that I used like a while back. But what's that one show on Netflix about politics? Kevin Spacey. I mean, he got in big trouble and rightfully so.
House of Cards.
What is that?
House of Cards.
I heard someone say Austin Powers. I was like, what? Mind blown, right? Most of us don't know what Austin Powers is, right? A new seminar on Austin Powers. So Austin Powers, no, okay. House of Cards, right? So I watched the first season of House of Cards. But then by the end of the season, I felt very sneaky and sneaky. I was like, how do I ruin this person's life? Right? No, I'm just being totally, because I absorb like crazy. And so for me, actually, I told myself, I need to step away from this show. So I'm just saying, there may be certain things or certain types of conversations that we have with our friends that you do need to kind of pull away from. Okay, so for me, I'm a pastor, and when pastors get together, it's weird. We're supposed to serve the Lord, but certain pastors, I get together and I'm just like, yeah, let's gossip, right? I'm just like, what's happening right now, right? I'm just being totally honest. I'm gonna get in trouble for this, right? I'm like, whoa, and sometimes I walk away and I'm like, my heart is just, I feel like vomiting. I just feel sick to my stomach. In a certain conversation, I'm just like, the moment it starts going, I'm like, I gotta take it down. AKA, I'm going home, right? So we have to know ourselves. So you pursue him, but what do you need to kind of turn away from? And so, this idea of dying to selfishness, it is not romantic. It is not glorious. There may be glorious moments, but it is difficult. There are times when it's literally like this. Oh my gosh, I feel temptation. I really feel tempted to pursue this, but I'm just gonna, actually, he died for us, right? So it's okay, there's grace upon grace. No, it's wrong. Like, if I'm gonna serve him, I have to love him and, deny myself and not, the flesh, the spirit. Right? It's just not glorious at all. But we don't. Now, here's why this matters. And we'll close here. And by closing, I mean we have 30 minutes left. So I researched this for about 52 weeks. This is the process called germination. Did I get that right? Anytime I try to sound smart, it goes sideways. All right? This is the process where a tree comes out. Okay, there. But apparently, I could be wrong here. Some of you guys are laughing at me right now, like germination. It's actually something else. A seed, once this germination process starts, the seed has to go. in some ways, it kind of has to, kind of disappear, almost die. But in so doing, a tree appears. Life appears from that type of death. You know what a tree can do? Bear fruit. Some of us, we want to bear fruit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness. Some of us, we want to be effective in the way that we love and serve people. I'm just saying that there's got to be a little bit of death. Just a little bit of death in your life. You know, what's crazy is I was going to share some examples about how this has shown up in my life. And I am going to give those examples, but there's something else happened today that totally eclipsed my illustration. But, you know, do you want me to just kind of share my own real quickly? I'm going to. You know, like when I was in college, in terms of the external thriving spiritually, I beat everyone. You know, one year there was like this, oh, you know, if we fast and pray, we can change, you know, societal issues. So you know what I did? I fasted meat for 1 year. No accountability. Yeah, meat, I just went cold. For 1 year, no meat, and I prayed for those societal changes. You know, like preaching, as a third year, 21-year-old, I was leading a catapult. So in terms of the external stuff, like I was killing it, man. But if you knew me back then, and my wife will testify, I was extremely self-absorbed. In fact, a lot of my motivation for why I didn't eat meat after some point was because I couldn't lose. Because you know when I said I was going to do it, these guys were like, I give you like a month. So after some point, it wasn't even about juice anymore. It was like, I'm going to kill those guys. I will never let those guys have a satisfaction. Right? So I was like, this rib is just so unattractive. Because I'm going to win. Right? And so there was so much self. And actually, it was through pain, mistakes, external circumstances that kind of broke me over a course of a few seasons. Where today, I am still selfish. But I think some of the more patience that shows up in my life is actually on account of the death, germination. I want to read this. She couldn't be here today. Her name's Emily Lee. She's a third year at UCR. She was assigned a final by her Satan professor for tomorrow, so she couldn't be here today. She recently went on a vision trip with some leaders to Mexico. And she sent me this testimony. She was like, hey, Ben, can I send you my testimony from this trip? And I was like, yeah, sure, send it and I'll read it. And I think she sent it Wednesday. And right before I finished this talk, I finished the PowerPoint, and I was like, I gotta go home. I was like, I'm just gonna read the testimony and I'm gonna give her some feedback. And then I was reading it and my jaw literally hit the floor because I was like, you're doing it again. You're doing that whole connection scary stuff where you're reminding me that you're real because I didn't say it like that. Actually, I just straight up started praising him. I was just like, you're glorious and scary. I love you. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's 4,000 pages. No, but I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs. And I got her permissions, okay? But here's what it says. She wrote, I didn't want to go to this leaders retreat because I was in a rough patch spiritually. I've been going through difficult circumstances, like having health and family problems for a long time. And I was becoming very insecure and lonely in my pain. I was going to God, but I wasn't seeing any change in my life, so I became frustrated. And stopped for a while and spending time with the Lord. I still loved God, but I stopped going after my Creator's heart my priority. Because I was low-key bitter that I was not getting what I wanted. I was trying to fit God into my tiny box of wishes, hoping He would work my will and not His. Even though my pain from my sufferings is valid, I failed God because instead of producing good fruit from my trials, I only produced bad fruit. So you can imagine how freaking amazed I was. I'm like, this is my freaking sermon. I need to stop saying freaking. I failed God because in the testing of my faith, my trials led me to lose faith rather than staying steadfast, showing how little trust I have in God. Honestly, I got so rocked and rebuked by this vision trip. With my circumstantial pain in my mind, God was beckoning me to not just let go of my burdens, but also my worldly desires. Instead of condemnation I deserve for being so faithless and having a grumbling, hardened heart, he was telling me that he is mighty enough to hand him my messy life. I received breakthrough, which I've been needing for a long time. Every single sermon, seminar, prayer, worship, etc. directly ministered to my heart. God was overwhelmingly shedding his light into my life. During prayer, I felt as if God was wrapping me in a huge blanket of peace. And this is the final paragraph that I'm going to read, and listen carefully. And seriously, this weekend I realized there is really nothing more liberating or desirable than fully committing yourself to living a life with Jesus. I thought living a life that committed for Jesus would be hard, because it appears so from the outside, since you have to die to yourself in every single aspect. But I'm not wrong, it is hard. But when I felt God's presence this past weekend, when I started declaring that I surrender myself to him, I compared the joy I received from his presence to how I feel when I pursue my own glory, short-lasting happiness, but long-lasting anxiety. And I saw for myself how the difference between the two is one that brings life, while the other brings death. This is why Jesus died. He died to free you from your sins and my sins. But when he died, how he invites you to true joy, a fullness of the deepest joy that you can really experience in life with Jesus, is for you to also come and die. Die to selfishness. Die to self-imposing, God, this is how I'm going to fulfill my life. But instead to take his life. See, when we die to ourselves, it is a painful process. And it's a rigorous, nitty-gritty process. But what we get on the other side is that we really get to walk into what he truly has for us. And ultimately, we get it. We get it. Let's pray. You know, the band's going to lead us into a song, but one quick prayer topic that I'm going to give to us. Song, another prayer topic, and then song. You know, some of us, we've actually been overly discouraged lately because we haven't fit our scoreboard, right? We haven't been reading the Bible, the amount of days that we feel like we should have. We're not serving kind of with this joy that we feel like we should have. And it's all kind of right, knowing the right things, feeling the right things, and doing the right things. But for some of us, actually, maybe what he's actually inviting you to is not just, are you going to do those things? Are you going to perform those things? But more importantly, deeper underneath is, hey, are you surrendered? Are you surrendered to him? You desire him in his ways. Others of us, life is great. You're just thriving. It just feels like you finish your finals and you couldn't be happier. And sometimes it's actually when life is fantastic that we are most in danger of imposing our own selfish agendas to God. And so maybe he's inviting us to caution. And finally, others of us, life is really tough. Life sucks. And in fact, there are days when you're just like, I don't know if I can hold on. Like, I feel like I'm just going to emotionally break. But have you ever considered that these circumstances maybe in some way a unique grace where he's trying to awaken you out of your own self-absorbed stupor, our own drunkenness with ourselves. That maybe he's saying, you're not really in control as much as you think. In fact, it's much better. Life is better when you believe that I'm in control. Your life is better when you hand it over to me in my life. And so wherever you are, I want us to hear his call to deny ourselves, pick up our crosses, and to follow him. And so, interact with him. Talk to him. Maybe you need to confess. If there's an area where you're just not surrendering to him, maybe you need to, if you feel just really selfish tonight, maybe you need to confess that. Or if you just want help, just say, God, help me to thrive spiritually by dying to my selfishness. Take me on a journey, on a painful journey, even if necessary, to kind of deplete myself of selfishness. Let's make it our prayer, and the band's going to lead us. You know, before we go into our final song, just maybe one more prayer topic. You know, as a father of a 5-year-old boy, I've learned that he and I have very different definitions of what it means for him to thrive. And there are these moments every single day when him and I, we meet at this place where he says, I'm going to pursue it this way. And I say, no, we're going to go this way. And it's hilarious because, you know, as a 5-year-old, what I'm asking to give up is just, oh my gosh, the death to self of that will at that moment, it's extremely tough for him. But I'm just saying for me, being older, wiser, taller, better looking, you know, more spiritual, everything, you know, my ways are higher than his ways. And I just want to kind of invite him and lead him down this road where there's going to be so much more joy. And if you would just trust him. And I think when Jesus says, you know, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me, it's not that he's trying to invite, right? It's like, let's just experience as much pain as possible. No, that's what it seems like. But actually, have you ever considered that our Father, his ways are higher? And so, this daily, oh my gosh, I need to put away my selfishness. I need to not control God. I need to let him control me. As painful as it is, he's actually inviting us to a better path. A path of greater joy. But it's hard to see that. It's hard to believe that. And I think that's why we have to pray for each other. And you know, I've quoted this passage often, but in Ephesians 1, Paul says that he prays for these believers, that their eyes would be enlightened, the eyes of their hearts would be enlightened to the hope that they already have. What he's saying is, I'm praying for you so that your inner realities, your spiritual realities, feel real to you. You remember them. But the unlocking mechanism for that, it's prayer. It's prayer. It's when we pray for each other. And so here's what I want to invite us to before we close in our last song. Is, you know, there's someone next to you. Could we just pray for the brother or sister next to us? And then let's pray that they would enter a process where they die to their selfishness. Now, it's a crazy prayer, right? It's like, may they die to their selfishness, do whatever it takes. But let's pray a bold prayer for one another, that we would become more like Jesus, less like ourselves, but more like our crucified with Christ self. Amen? Okay? And so let's you know, if you don't know the person next to you, just meet him really quickly. It's totally okay. But let's pray for each other, and then the band's going to take us away. All right? Go for it. Let's go. Let's pray for each other. Christ, we thank you. Sometimes it's in the midst of busyness. Sometimes it's in the midst of so much Christian activity that we actually forget the very call of the Christian. And God, what I love is that, you know, maybe all of our feelings won't necessarily always be positive. You know, maybe our minds aren't going to be filled with the greatest truths as we want. And no, maybe even sometimes we
our actions, we wish we can serve more. We might not look the best. We might not feel the best all the time. But God, I pray that deep underneath, we would be a people and a ministry that reflects, that shines, and gives off the scent that we are dying to our selfishness. But yet in doing so, Christ, your life, is shining through. And so, Lord, as we now go back to finishing our midterms and finals and papers, I pray that we would start to apply this, strengthen us. But as we now move into winter break and have some time, help us to more proactively seek you and desire you and want you and to turn away from the things that hinder us. And so awaken us. And thank you for your amazing invitation to deny ourselves and follow you, and therefore have life that is truly like you. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, let's give our God a clap offering. And, you may be seated. Laura and Jay are going to give us some announcements, okay?